Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew, with you here as always. This is the Commando Cast, a video cast about all things Star Wars Destiny. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando.
The piloting mechanic introduced in FFG's Covert missions was, arguably, the most applauded and well-received mechanic in all of Destiny's history. After all, the concept of putting our favorite pilots into their ships and flying around blowing stuff up appeals to the kid in all of us. I mean, for middle school me, trying to play on Decipher CCG on a middle school's budget, aka 1 pack a month, the concept of putting my big Dark Lighter into his Red 3 ship was beyond amazing, and the piloting mechanic in Destiny promised to repeat that. However, I think it's pretty safe to say that on initial drop, which yes, ended up being FFG's only drop, the community at large was primarily underwhelmed at piloting. The characters with piloting were at first appearance overcosted, and in many cases clunky. Amidst cries from the fringes of the community to every pilot should get piloting, those who fancied themselves smart at Destiny decried that statement as short-sighted. After all, the concept of using a support as an upgrade should inherently carry an opportunity cost built into said mechanic, reflected on the point cost of that character. But moving forward, this awesome and full of theme mechanic has become pervasive in the game. The number of pilots without piloting are few and far between, and their point costs are well on par with non-pilots. And at this point, I'm wondering if we shouldn't take a minute, step back, and admit, as painful as it might be, that FFG might actually have been right to swerve conservative when it came to piloting. Hello Star Wars Destiny folks, and welcome back to Dice Commando and the Commando Cast. I'm Andrew with you here as always, and thank you very much for joining me on the morning before the night before Christmas. That's right folks, it's Destiny Friday, but it's also the day before Christmas. So I just wanted to, from my family to yours, wish everybody a happy holiday. Now I also realize that yes, it being Destiny Friday when it is, very few people might actually be watching this on Destiny Friday, so because you're traveling, you're with family, or whatever it may be. So if you're watching this after the holidays, I hope everything was great. If you're headed into the holidays, I hope everything will be great, and that, you know, whatever you guys choose to celebrate or not to, that it's good, it's safe, and it's with people that you care about. So thanks for continuing to check in here and be a part of our little own family in its own way. So right, today's video talking about piloting. Now, there was a lot of things to unpack in my little kind of intro spiel there, a lot of different moving pieces there, but that's because this is a relatively complex topic, kind of interwoven, because there's a lot of pieces that fit together that, you know, people may or may not disagree on all of them, but hoping we can come to kind of a conclusion here, right? So a couple things before we really dive into this. The thesis statement overall here is that piloting as a mechanic, as an ability, was originally designed with as an opportunity cost, right? It carried an opportunity cost with it, and that was represented on the characters. It was given to in some fashion as points, right? It was built into their point cost. So bringing piloting to the table on a character, it was really counted as an ability, and that, you know, most of what we're seeing by and large in the character design, you know, in the later ARH sets, is that piloting is not really treated as such, right? Now the question is, what does that mean? What's the impact, and does it matter? It may not, right? But it's very clear that piloting has changed since the original set. Now, it made a lot of sense for FFG to be cautious when they were introducing it, right? Introducing a new mechanic, it's perfectly reasonable to be cautious. And one of the things we talked about in the intro, I brought up in the intro, was that, you know, when piloting first came out, covert missions, the pilots overall were pretty underwhelming, right? If you looked at, well, I'll go ahead and put up the original pilots, right? If you look at like Poe and Sabine and Hera, I mean, you look at all the, you know, the couple of them in there that are okay mathematically, but overall, right? You know, Poe, like, at 17 points for what he brought to the table. It was a little high. There were no great partners for him. So like I said, piloting was just kind of underwhelming overall, and that was largely because FFG was taking a very, very conservative approach to piloting. And that's kind of one of the things, to ask is like, why was, they certainly weren't conservative when it came to diceless characters and stuff like that. So why would they take such a cautious approach? Well, very clearly what piloting can do, which is effectively it lets you treat your ships, your vehicles, as upgrades, right? That's potentially very, very powerful in this game. If a ship can become a redeploy weapon effectively, that's pretty good, right? And then it still can come in later. So it's very, very good, right? Because you in almost every case, right? Functionally, in almost every case, you would prefer to put a 3-cost weapon into play independently, knowing that it could come in with, right? You give a character an upgrade because then it can come in with that character and you don't lose the actions. But if you could, say, put a 3-cost upgrade into play that would just come in with something like Conscript Squad, for example, right? Conscript Squad, very, very fantastic card, came in with a leader, right? That's probably a better example than the path I'm trying to go down here with the losing path I'm trying to go down here with proving my point with an upgrade. But you guys get it, right? The acceleration that you putting the support in, part of it being permanent, is that it slows you down, right? And being a pilot takes that away, and there has to be some sort of cost for that, right? And that is reflected in the points of the pilot, or at least that's the effect. Now, just to put kind of the conversation into context, that, I think a lot of people right now are probably screaming the screen like, well, it doesn't matter. We like piloting. It's a great thing. Completely agree. I love the piloting mechanic. I think it's fantastic. It brings out the little kid in me. It's perfect. Like, it's one of the best mechanics we've ever seen in this game. The question is, though, can we just give everybody piloting, right? Recall back when CM was first dropped and Destiny was still a lot bigger of a community, right? There was a lot of people. I remember specifically having a discussion with one individual on Facebook. I don't remember the name, and it doesn't matter. But it was like, all pilots should have piloting, right? What his position was that every pilot that had been printed in Destiny should be retconned to automatically get piloting, right? We shouldn't be giving piloting. We should just change anybody who has the pilot keyword to do this. And it wasn't just myself. It was many, many, many people were like, no, you can't do that because the cards were designed in their own, right? The cards 3-4 sets ago were designed in their own vacuum and shouldn't be changed to have this new mechanic, right? And we, by and large, the smart Destiny minds, or the people who fancied themselves as such, agreed with that, right? You can't do that. And part of that agreement was because of that balance thing, right? You can't just give, the argument being that you can't give a character that didn't have piloting suddenly piloting because he wasn't designed and balanced as having piloting. Okay. But doesn't that in of itself mean that piloting must have a cost to it, right? So if I can't go back and just for free give characters piloting, the reason I'm saying that is because they weren't balanced with having piloting, right? But then we go forward into the ARH era of Destiny, and by and large, we don't see much of an opportunity cost for these characters that have piloting. Now again, they've been tested with having piloting, so it's not exactly a one-to-one. But again, without having some sort of point cost or some sort of trade-off on getting piloting, that was why they didn't want to be applied backwards. But now we have many of those same people applying that forward. So again, to be very, very clear, I have no problem with it. I think it's a fantastic mechanic. But it is interesting how that opportunity cost has somewhat been lost, right? And maybe you're getting tired at this point of hearing the term opportunity cost. I get it. So let's just throw up a comparison, right? Let's look at Poe, Sabine, Luke, and Hera, right? Now, Luke, very, very, very good. Probably saw the most play of any of these other four. But you compare that to someone like Wedge, right? Remember, I'm covering up Luke's health there in the image, but Luke had 10 health, right? We all remember that, right? So, 10-13 on Sabine, 9-12 on Hera, 14-17 on Poe, 11-14 on Luke, and Wedge is a 9-12 with 10, 4 damage sides, and he has piloting. right? And you look at Sabine. Sabine has no ability other than piloting. She just has a special. Hera has an ability in piloting, so she has effectively 2 abilities. Luke Skywalker has 2 abilities, right? One Pyre's with the plot, but that doesn't really count because that's built into his points again. And then Poe has 2 abilities, 1 in a power action. But then we've moved into the ARH era of Destiny, where granted most characters have picked up more abilities, right? Where it's pretty standard now to see some sort of after activation ability and power action of some sort, or something else stacked on top. But you go look back at Benthic. Benthic has piloting and something and a power action, right? So we're starting to stack these abilities in, and piloting has just now become ubiquitous that basically anybody who's associated can have piloting. And again, that's fine because it's been tested and it is what it is within, like I said, the ARH era of Destiny. But how has that really changed? How has that changed the game, and how will it change? How will it change going forward? So one of the questions I wanted to ask in terms of that opportunity cost, right, is does it even matter, right? So was FFG right to be conservative? I think they were, because we didn't know how it was going, but was it necessary? Maybe that's the better question, right? Was it necessary for FFG to be as conservative with piloting as they were? And another interesting question I hadn't really thought of until now is, would we have continued to see, FFG was kind of notorious for like introducing a new mechanic and not really supporting it by and large, right? Would we have continued to see much piloting going forward, right? Would they have had, would piloting have become a permanent thing for them, or was it really just kind of a one set theme? That's interesting, because now it's definitely a permanent part of Star Wars Destiny for us, right? We expect our sets to have pilots, right? So anyway, back to my main train of thought there was, one of the things that makes pilots really, really, really strong isn't just the pilots. It's the piloting support cards, right? Eject, Assail, Flanked by Wingman. Those are very, very, very strong cards, right? Now, those cards will eventually rotate out. So at that point, does piloting really matter as much, right? Sure, we always have the, effectively using one, or depending on how many pilots you're running X number of your supports as upgrades. That certainly has something with it. But once those rotate out, it doesn't matter. And then someone can counter and be like, well, with DM, supports are not good as upgrades. Well, DM's going to rotate out eventually too, right? So those basically negate each other. Yes, there's one set worth of rotation difference there, because one is, DM's SOH, Spark of Hope, and the others are CM, Covert Missions. So fair enough there. Some do say supports are weaker. I generally don't think they are. Generally, if you go through and compare, well, I haven't actually done it in the ARH, but it used to be that equal cost supports generally were a little better than upgrades, right? By and large, especially once you got into the 3 and 4 range. Although some of those abilities are pretty good. Some of those ability upgrades are certainly pretty good. So that may not be that's actually probably not a fair statement. But either way, right? Does piloting matter effectively once the piloting support cards go away? But then you could do it on the flip side of, are the pilots any good without the piloting support cards? I think still probably yes, right? Again, the ability to, have 2 upgrades, 2 redeploy upgrades, and come in with a ship and have Veteran of War on or something like that. So, I think you guys get it. So overall, will we come to a conclusion on? We certainly probably won't come to an agreement on this, right? I personally think that we've probably gone. I think we've probably gone a little too far. If we look at some of the pilots we have out there, I think we've probably gone a little too far in terms of being pretty free with the use of piloting. And I say that again, not because I don't like piloting. I think it's a really cool thematic thing to have in this game. And that's why I think it belongs on the thematic characters. One of the things that we've seen, especially in the last set, we've seen a lot of the non-uniques get piloting. And I think that's, the Rebel pilot, that's obviously its intention. But you have the Rebel smuggler does he really need piloting? I mean, obviously it does to work with his thing, right? But you start to see, so now it's not just that you have piloting, it's that you have something that works with piloting. And if you really go look at the points, like, it's pretty, like, I mean, at the points of that, I mean, the Rebel Smuggler, like, he's probably pretty good, right? And I'm trying to pull the punches there on what, like, he's probably too good. I mean, I'll just say it, like, he's probably too good, right? So again, I'm not anti-piloting going on the non-uniques, but it seems to have completely lost its cost. Piloting just seems to be a free thing that we give to people now because it just seems that it's a free thing that we're giving to people. And I'm kind of wondering what the effect of that's going to be long term. I mean, we don't really think about giving it to people. It's just a free ability that goes on there. And it basically has become that anybody with pilot gets piloting at this point. I mean, that really is kind of how it is. And maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it's not a bad thing, but it's something that I'm wondering if we're even really thinking about, because it's almost like we expect it to be, you know, has the game changed that much that somebody who doesn't have piloting can't survive in those type of decks? I mean, maybe it has. So anyway, that's just kind of my piece today. It's kind of a rambling piece, I suppose. So, but you know, hopefully you guys understand at least where I'm coming from a little bit there, right? Just kind of looking back and comparing where we are now versus where we were. And again, power creep's a thing. I do believe the game's in a much, I mean, under ARH's control, the game is without question in a much better spot on almost every level, on every level than it was. Well, except for the fact that you can't buy booster packs at the store. So yeah, almost every level, right? But I mean, you guys get what I'm saying, right? Obviously, we're in a much better space than we were during the FFG era of Destiny at the end. There's no question about it. But it is worth asking the question of, you know, was FFG maybe onto something by pumping the brakes on it? Because if they hadn't, we'd be in this kind of all-out range that maybe we are right now. So anyway, that's just my piece for today. Let me know, what do you guys think about piloting? Like, I think we all love it. I mean, I think that's very clear. Like, we all love it. Piloting absolutely has a place in the game. That's why it's continued to be a very heavily used mechanic throughout all the sets. Definitely has a place. But now that we're using piloting as a jumping off point, like Iden's ability, and like, I mean, Iden's ability is really strong, and we're starting to see it on all these characters, and it really functionally changes a lot of the decks, because now those support decks aren't as slow as they used to be, and it really changes a lot of things. And as long as we continue to test them, might not be a problem. Maybe it's not a problem to begin with. Maybe it's just old man Andrew looking at it and being like, man, this has really come a long way. Are we sure we know what we're doing? But you know what? That's what I'm here, is to ask the question. So anyway, folks, that'll do it for me today. Like I said, please let me know what you're thinking. Let me know if I'm just a crazy old man who's complaining at the screen. Probably am. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts. If nothing else, folks, have a great holiday season, and go Commando.